Hello, guys. Welcome to today's session. I want to start by just some housekeeping rules that we have. And obviously, if you read the notes, if you read the participants, I'm not Kim. Kim is supposed to be here moderating, but I'm not her. So I'm sorry if you're here to see her. You're here to cheer me on. And our panelists now, unfortunately, Kim had a family emergency, so she's unable to be here with us. And we also have one of the other panelists that's supposed to be here talking about Jason learning. He also had a family emergency that occurred this morning. So he's not here, but we will also cover some part of those questions if you have that. But some housekeeping rules. I'm going to read some of my notes here. Please take a look at your antitrust policy that's at the table. ReMA abide to that 100%. So no pricing talk and stuff like that. And safety exit, there's a couple exit in the back here. And are there any members of the media in this room? If you could raise your hand, please. Thank you so much for participating. All right, well, I want to start this session by thanking our panelists for agreeing to participate in today's session, ReMA 2025, Sustainable Workforce Built, Hire, Retain, and Promotes, hosted by the Women in Recycling, sponsored by VALIS Insight. I also want to spend some time recognize some of the college students that we have represented here. San Diego College of Continuing Education is represented here. Northeastern University from Illinois is here as well. MIT from Massachusetts. Cumberland River College. Juata College from Pennsylvania. And this school is from Mexico, and I'm going to try my best to pronounce this. Escuela Bancaria y Comercial. I believe that's a college of banking and commercial industry. Thank you so much for participating. I also want to take some time to recognize our Jason Learning poster and video winners that are participating in today's session as well. Thank you for being here. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speakers. First, we have Kevin Salcido. He is a semi-retired HR executive. Recent role includes VP of Chief Human Resource Officer at Arizona State University. And Kevin has been an HR leader for 35 years. Kevin is a speaker and author of Amazon's best-selling book, Your Afternoon Mentor, a book that targets to early career professionals seeking to learn to get noticed for an executive job, transition into senior role, and making leadership career last over time. Kevin's passion is developing potential in others, and he likes to use plain language, brief, thought-provoking scenarios, exercises. Other areas of his interest include employee and labor retention, engagement and development, building performance culture, and leadership coaching. He holds a bachelor's degrees in justice studies and MBA from Arizona State University. Thank you, Kevin, for participating.
Thank you for inviting me.
And we also have Jeremy Vang. Jeremy Vang is the HR manager at CW Companies, where he leads workforce development initiatives that attract, retain, grow top talents in the metals recycling business. Jeremy has focused on inclusive hiring and mentorship and career development. Jeremy has launched a company's inclusive workforce program, expanding opportunities for underrepresented talents, implemented a junior account manager training and mentorship program in his company, and also developed the next generation for the industry leaders. Thank you, Jeremy, for your passion in the human resource area. We also have Jacqueline Richard. Jacqueline is the Director of Coastal Studies GIS Technology at Nunes Community College with 18 years of education and advocacy experience. By focusing on education surrounding the complexity of Louisiana coastal issues, Jacqueline has developed place-paced curriculum at middle, high school, college level to bring educational awareness to the forefront. Jacqueline also served as an environmental education commissioner for the state of Louisiana. To support the development of Louisiana's sustainability energy options, she has recently helped develop the Incoming Wind Energy Technology program at Nunes University. Jacqueline's passion is getting into the wetlands and teaching about these fragile ecosystems, planting trees, help save the coastlines. She received recently the Volunteer of the Year in 2022, and also the Coastal Stewardship Award in 2024 from the Coalition to Restore Coastline Louisiana. Way to go. Give them a round of applause. So our panelist session is going to be question and answer style. We're going to be interviewing them, and hopefully you will all walk away getting some insights of how to attract, retain, and grow your talents that's in the company, especially in today's arena. It's very competitive job market. I don't know if you guys were at the opening ceremony this morning, but you see the chart from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce showing that the opening, there's so many jobs that's open and so many people that are unemployed and how competitive the markets are. So we hope to dive in further on those. So I'm going to ask Kevin our first question, throwing this at you. And I know Kevin and Kim and all the panelists spent a lot of time preparing some questions here. And in the conversation, Kevin has been talking about this idea of arch of employment. So Kevin, would you mind just kind of elaborate a little bit more on that, please?
Well, thank you for, is my microphone on? Good? Good. All right, I'm not hearing that. Anyway, thank you for the invitation. I sincerely appreciate the participation in the conference. San Diego's a great city, wonderful organization, and you guys have really cool machinery in that exhibit hall. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the employment situation that we're dealing with now. I was in human resources for 35 years. Okay. I worked in a variety of different businesses, newspapers, nuclear power, university settings. I've never seen a more challenging employment environment than we have right now. We still have a major overhang from the pandemic, I believe. I think that really reset a lot of people's expectations of what they want out of work and what they want out of life. I think we're seeing economic reordering as far as how wealth is distributed, not only within the country, but between countries. You're seeing that with some of the trade policies that are changing as we speak. So a lot of overhang as far as economic distribution of wealth. I think you're seeing some real challenges on the political front as far as what's acceptable at work, what we used to discuss at work, what we don't discuss at work, what we're supposed to discuss at work, what we're not supposed to discuss at work. I've never saw that before. It used to be that work was work, home was home, politics, politics. It's all seemed to be mixed up now. Along those lines, I think you're seeing a lot of the impacts of technology, specifically how we interact personally with technology. Again, you used to be able to go from home from work and leave your work at work, but now we're on duty 24/7. Artificial intelligence is an emerging field that I think is going to have tremendous impact on how people are hired and managed. I foresee a time when 10 years from now, you're going to be having your performance review with a computer, if not before that. And then finally, I would say, you mentioned it earlier, just general workforce participation, what people expect out of work. There's 4 or 5 generations in the workforce now, and people like me, boomers, people born after 46 through 1964, we're transitioning out, and there's a whole bunch of new people coming in. What I found very interesting, and I can't explain this, maybe you can explain this, is there's a whole cohort of people missing from the workforce right now, and that is younger males between the age of 18 and 34. There's 6 or 7 million people, 6 or 7 younger males in between those ages that are just not working right now. And that's something that's really never happened before. So maybe we can get to find time to tease out why that's happening. So setting the stage for just all these different challenges, I'm glad that I'm retired from human resources. So, because you have your hands full. Now, let's talk about how we can overcome some of these challenges. If you're smart in 5 or 6 different arenas, okay, you can develop and retain and develop a very effective workforce. So I'm going to give you 5 or 6 bullet points that we're going to talk about in greater detail. You guys go okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So if you look at the employment life as an entire cycle, of course, the beginning is sourcing and pipeline. Okay. So really good organizations do really good at creating pipelines. Now, whether that's something that's well done in this industry, I can't say. I'm not in this industry, but I would say that if you're not creating a pipeline, if you're not reaching out to local trade schools, universities, high schools, community colleges, military, former military people, then you're missing an opportunity to create recognition of what your company and what this industry can do for people over the long haul. Mm-hmm. So I think you're going to talk more about sourcing, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll let Jeremy bring that up. Number two, the second item is recruitment. Okay. A lot of companies undervalue the recruitment process. Okay. If you can fog a mirror, you're welcome to work here. Okay. Now, I mentioned the machinery earlier. You all spend a lot of time and effort investing in capital assets, and you make sure that you spend your money in the right way to get the highest return on that investment. Same with people. If you're not really spending the time necessary to really bring on the right people, then you're just wasting time and effort. Now, some people recruit too quickly, which I just mentioned. Warm body, welcome. Some people recruit too slowly, which means that people move on to other companies. So I would always encourage people to take a critical look at your recruitment process. Onboarding. Have you ever walked into a job and thought, all right, this is not the job that I interviewed for? Common, right? That's happened to me a few times, okay? So where a lot of people don't understand is employees, they will make up their mind about whether they're going to stay with you within about 3 days. That's been studied, and the psychologists tell us within about 3 days, your employees are deciding whether they're going to spend 2 months with you, 2 years with you, or 20 years with you. So it's critical to have an effective onboarding process. And we could talk about that in more detail as well. Rewards and compensation. You ever been able to figure out why I cannot afford to give Jane a $10,000 increase, but when Jane leaves, I can afford to pay her replacement $20,000 more? Is that familiar in your organization? Okay. So total rewards, compensation, making sure that you're using a variety of different strategies to compensate people and staying competitive. Now, having just said that about compensation, the number one reason people will leave, well, there's two reasons people leave organizations primarily. One is they want a path for the future. People like development. People like they like envisioning a future for themselves in your organization. So I always encourage leaders, because it's a leadership responsibility, not human resources. It's a leadership responsibility to create pathways for employees so they'll stay. And along those lines, and then I'll let my colleague and others speak, people want good leadership. And we're talking culture, and we'll talk about culture at the end as well. But people do not leave jobs. People leave leaders. So if you are having a hard time with retention, recruitment, culture, productivity, it's pretty obvious to me that you may be having some leadership issues as well. So good leadership will beget positive culture, and all these other things will fall into place.
Thank you, Kevin. So what I just quickly write down, this is a really good tip, right? You have your sourcing, recruiting, onboarding, reward and comp, and then also the leadership, right? Mm-hmm. So I want to kind of go to Jeremy here really quick, because I know Jeremy has developed some really amazing program at CW companies. So I want to pick his brain. So looking at the programs that you have implemented with schools, talking particularly about that sourcing piece that Kevin just mentioned, how have you done this? Tapping into the pool of talents. You know, we also have some college students here and some really, really young kids that are probably potentially will be looking for a job now in the future, right? So tell them more.
Yeah, it's absolutely vital. And in the market today, we're all competing over the same resources. And as we saw this morning, we're 1.8 million short of the number of humans we need to do the jobs out there in the market today. So it gets to how can we find the people that want to be doing the work with us, right? And so I think a lot of it starts with, are we attracting the people that we want to bring in our organization, right? From a retention standpoint, that matters. From a safety standpoint, that matters. From an engagement standpoint and productivity standpoint, that matters. So I think a lot of it starts with, are we describing the problem that we're trying to solve as an organization first? Are we explaining why we want to solve that problem to the people that we're attempting to attract and work with us on solving those issues. I think when you get people that are aligned in that mentality, you're going to get the synergies of high-performing people like to work with other high-performing people, right? To your point, when you get 3 days to make that decision on whether they have a future within your organization or not, do they see that from the beginning? Do they see other people that are working effectively and efficiently? And that being the vital step in it. So to working with our schools, to working with these feeder programs, it's identifying the who first, and then making sure that you're communicating to our college students, to the people that are entering the job market, the amazing opportunity that this recycling industry is presenting, right? We are legitimately building the United States with what we do on a daily basis. My background before the recycling industry was coming out of the group health insurance space. It's very difficult to get people energized about building health insurance, right? Most of us here have got a very negative attitude probably towards that, but it's an easy sale to me when you get to talk about the good work that the Recycled Material Association is getting to do. So talking to the college students specifically, looking for people to help us with this critical mission is I think, step number one. And then identifying those skills at each level. You know, we've got so many different careers within the recycling industry, within our organization alone, from, low skill or unskilled pick line positions up to an environmental scientist now, right? And everything in between there. So, we talk about there is every single job within this within this industry if you want to help us with this problem.
Thank you. I really like how our panel here is selected to be very diverse. So let me just tell you, right? Jeremy here just shared his perspective from a recycler standpoint, a person that actually works in the industry. I'm going to ask Jacqueline, who is in the community, in the college perspective, just asking her perspective on, so you being a vital part for the Louisiana Community College, what would you say the best pathway to employment from the recycling industry specifically? So let's see if this lined up.
Yeah, this is a great question and great perspectives all the way around. It's really interesting to build these programs. And I know I'm a coastal scientist, right? And you heard my bio, and that's not really related to this at all. But I'm very fortunate over the last 18 years to have built 6 different programs in Louisiana. And the most critical thing happens right at the beginning, and it's building your advisory board with industry input. All of the advisory boards that I've built, all the way from geology programs to wind energy technology, 60% of my advisory boards are from industry. We kind of have this bad habit in academia of siloing ourselves, thinking I have the degree, so I have the answers, right? Well, that's not always the case, because you guys are hiring our students. I need to know, what do you need them to have? What skills, what certifications, what trainings? And without that input, we're just kind of talking past each other. So that's really the first part of developing any kind of pathway. Because again, I need to know to build my curriculum, right? Whether I'm a content expert or not doesn't matter, right? I need to be able to identify that. And so I'm really excited to be moving into this space, because I'm working with ReMA to build a workforce day at my community college with our local recycling agency. And what we're going to do is we're going to have them come in and take a look at our students, take a look at our programs, go tour our heavy equipment operating program, come take a look at our forklift students, come take a look at our welding students, look at our HVAC, look at our electrical, and have our students really show off their skills, because they're going to be vying for these jobs. And if you don't know the programs that are at your local community colleges, because this is the space that is really important that we occupy, then that's a huge missed opportunity, because we are training students for these very specific things. So breaking down that silo and having that conversation and visiting these colleges, you're going to see a huge pool of talent that's there. The problem is the breakdown at graduation, right? So students graduate, And we don't teach them where to go to look for jobs. We don't teach them how to do interviews. We don't teach them those skills. So I'm excited that we're building that into our workforce day. I just did this with my coastal students where we had 28 industry partners present all the way from grad schools down to GIS technicians. And we had mock interviews. We had panels. I got all of my students internships for the summer. And these industry partners, they're on my advisory board. But talking to the students and hearing their passions, that's what landed them those internships that they have. So I'm excited to be able to repeat this with the recycling industry because there is a wealth of jobs. Walking around that expo, I'm still overwhelmed by the amount of possibilities and opportunities that our students could have. And so building that pipeline and building that direction is really important. And the other piece that I know we're going to talk about probably in a little bit is the education piece at the K through 12 part. That part is really important. You know, I have 2 kids myself, and everyone wants to, you know, my youngest wants to be an astronaut, right? He's not thinking about, you know, metal recycling by any stretch of the imagination, right? But if kids aren't aware of these jobs at middle school, that's when the studies have actually shown that that's when kids really start making those decisions. If they're not even aware of these career possibilities, then that's not on their radar moving forward. So it's really up to us to get some of that curriculum in these K through 12 schools so they know that these jobs are even viable, right? That's a pathway and good money pathway. All of these jobs that I listed before, the concentrations that our students have, are making more than the median pay in Louisiana. And you only need sometimes just certifications, sometimes a 2-year degree. That's fantastic. And we really need to be relying on that more.
Yes, thank you. I know Jason Learning representation is not here, but I will talk a little bit about Jason Learning. So the ReMA, Recycle Association, Material Association, partner with Jason Learning, and we developed this program that is free to all K through 12 students. And there's also an annual contest. So that's why I kind of give a shout out to our annual contest winners for poster and videos. And I just encourage all of the participants here to look into more of that and maybe even come to us and ask those questions. Shift gear a little bit here. Going to Kevin. I would like to understand and ask you this question. What are some of the opportunities and challenges that we have today with multi-generational in this workforce? The reason I ask that is recycling industry. If you notice, it's a multi-generational industry. A lot of the companies that you will meet, you will know that, well, this family, maybe the granddad is the immigrant here, and then they inherited the business, and now they are trying to grow the business. So tell us a little bit more about like opportunities and challenges that you see.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think the workforce has changed so much over the last 35 years since I started that it's almost unrecognizable. So for a young person coming in to the workforce right now, they're dealing with challenges that I didn't deal with. Okay. First and foremost is just the cost of living. I am in my 60s. I bought my first house for $85,000, right? And I was working in a grocery store at the time. I can tell you now, you're not going to buy a house working in a grocery store. Cars. So people are delaying those mile markers that my generation used to look at. Marriage, buying a house, buying a car. They're delaying that primarily because they can't afford it. I have 2 daughters and they're both in their early 30s, and they're not struggling because thank God they have a good education, but they're in the helping professions. One's a teacher, one's a social worker, and I don't think they're going to have the same level of comfort that we gave them because those jobs don't pay and because of the expenses that they face. So that's one of the biggest challenges is I think a young person is seeing this mountain that they have to climb. And I think that can be very discouraging for them. And I think it promotes maybe a little bit of, well, I'm going to try this. And if I don't get what I want on this, then I need to go try this. Then I go need to try this. You know, everybody wants to work for Google, right? But nobody realizes that there's 20,000 schmoogles for every Google, right? So you have to, I think we see a lot of more transients with younger generations, as far as they change jobs much more often. My generation changed jobs about 5 or 6 times. The generation coming into the workforce is going to change jobs 12 to 14 times. So that's a challenge as well. People want different things out of leadership at different types in their life, and that's a challenge. So, and then I think there's areas around accountability, what I owe my employer and what my employer owes me. I think those are conversations that are always being calibrated and recalibrated. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I have a variety of students coming out of community college or coming into community college, right? 18 to 27. That's our average age at community college, is 27. And so that's telling you that people were in a career, in a job, realize it didn't work out for most of the reasons that you listed, and they're coming back to get re-educated and re-skilled. And that pathway is really important. Most of the students in my program have master's degrees, and they're coming back to community college for certifications. And I think that there's been a stigma for a long time about going to community colleges, right? My generation, it was definitely, you have to go to college, you have to get a master's degree, right? To have a viable job. Well, I will tell you, most of the people probably working in your shipyard or your scrap yards make more money than I do, right? With a master's degree in education. So we need to make sure that that they understand that these certifications, you only need to go to school for a year or a semester, right? To target what you want to learn. And you can go into these industries and make a lot of money and have a much more comfortable life, right? There's nothing wrong with any of these career pathways. And I think that's part of that siloing and breaking down that we really need to do.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that our industry has been doing to appear and more palatable to community colleges is really the rebranding effort, right? A lot of people here might know that ReMA, stands for Recycled Material Association, used to be known as ISRI. And when we were known as ISRI, it's Institute of Scrap and Recycling Industry. That doesn't really seem to be as open to some of the community colleges. So I would like to just pick Jeremy's brain here a little bit on walk us through that rebranding of our industry into this Recycled Material Association. Does that create more of a, say, advertisement or more of a opening conversation with some of the program that you've been developing?
Yeah, without question. The concept, the materials that the ReMA organization is putting together are making it easier for me to help tell our story. The content that's being created around our industry online is helping me to be able to tell our story better, right, to the population. Again, getting down to the why. I will continue to come back to this. The push for finding people that want to help you do the hard work that you're doing. We look at all the statistics that are out there in the market right now, and if you're lucky, you're going to have 3 out of 10 of your employees that are actively engaged in your business, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the percentage of people that are actually driving your business forward for you. What if we could take that up to 4 out of 10 or 5 out of 10? What does that productivity look like? And again, it's finding people that want to do the work, not that are willing to do the tasks that you're offering up. Right. So it's being very intentional. I hear the comment a lot. Quality starts at the scale, right? And that's what it is with our people as well, right? And so are we being intentional with finding those people to help us do the hard work?
Okay. Thank you. Jacqueline, what are some of the most effective strategies that you have seen for engaging with schools and community? I know that with the rebranding, we are shifting our perspective and our talk with students and community colleges. But what are some of the ways that you think that is most effective and beneficial from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are dual enrollment programs across the country that get high school students into community colleges for training. And that's really the best way to make inroads. For instance, I currently have a student who's a junior in high school in my associate's program, and she's going to graduate with her high school diploma and an associate's degree. There are a lot of young kids out there that are hungry for that kind of stuff. They're bored with school. Like, let's be honest, right? A lot of our K through 12 schools are just teaching to the standards. They're not really challenging a lot of our kids. And so when we develop these dual enrollment pathways, which means that this is a student that can go into a welding program, right? They can have an apprenticeship. That they're being challenged. They're thinking in new ways that they've never thought before. And they're seeing those opportunities at a much younger age because they're getting out, they're getting into the college setting, and they're getting out with employers doing apprenticeships. So that is really, in my opinion, the best place to start is talking to the local community colleges, make sure they've got a dual enrollment pathway set up, which I guarantee you we do, and finding those students and supporting them as they come through. Because like I said, they want to be hired the second they graduate, right? They want to start their life. I have a 20-year-old in college. He is so ready to already be done with college and move on to the rest of his life. So helping that along is going to be really important. And I think is going to make for really stronger ties in this industry and really any growing industry.
And I would just say, like, students that's in the room, like if their college is not offering those dual enrollment yet, maybe they can even raise those topics with their counselors and talk to one of us, and maybe we can help and push that forward as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to touch on that briefly. The partnerships that business, manufacturing, industry can have with the community, you don't get that in other spots, right? You have a active and willing partner in almost all of your community colleges, your technical programs that are out there. They are in the business of producing the people that we need to do our skilled labor positions, right? Whether it be heavy equipment mechanics or, the CDL right now, boy, we are all fighting over, truck drivers, but getting out and finding those programs. The schools want to know how to better prepare their students to go out into the workforce as well, and typically are some of the best partners that you can have. So yeah, if you do not have contacts or communications with your area community colleges, go home and do that tomorrow.
Thank you. Now we've heard a lot about the sourcing and the pathway program. Now I want to shift to the retention part of things, and maybe starting with Kevin. I'm curious, in today's world, because we are shifting to some of the hybrid, and sometimes people are still working in person. Maybe just tell us a little bit your perspective. What role does the flexibility, the hybrid model versus different type of working model play in the employment retention?
Well, I think it's so industry specific and person specific that it's hard to say that is either going to help or it's going to hurt you. Yeah. I think it's, again, I don't think there's actually any data on this yet, whether it's something that's a net positive or net negative. What I have read is people who are productive at the office are productive at home, and people who are not productive at the office are not productive at home. So again, it's a very individual type deal. When you're talking about retention now, I want people to understand that it's a basic concept out there that people want to feel like they're part of a winning team, and people want to feel like they're listened to and acknowledged and connected. There's a survey, it's called Gallup Q12. Okay, scribble it down. Gallup poll, the Gallup company that does polls, Q12. They do a survey, and they've surveyed, I think, there are over 3 million people now in a variety of different industries, and they asked 12 questions. Q12. Okay, and these questions are not complicated. And I'll just read a few. But they'll ask employees, I know what's expected of me at work? And a lot of people cannot answer that question. That's culture. That's leadership. I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work. At work, I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day. In the last 7 days, I've received recognition and praise for good work. My supervisor or somebody at work seems to care about me as a person. So that's 5 of the 12. And what themes are you hearing here? It's people just want to make sure that they're seen, right? So if you bring somebody into the office or into the factory or the yard and you ignore them and you don't develop them and you don't ask them how they're doing, expect to lose them. It's a little more complicated than that. Has that been your experience?
Absolutely. I can think back a couple of years ago, and we had a location where job is hard, turnover was high, right? The quality or caliber of people that we were getting to come in to apply for some of those jobs, again, was fog in the mirror. We would have a known kind of statement that, well, I'll kind of get to know them after 4 weeks if I see they're going to stick around or not. Mm-hmm. Right? So chicken or an egg kind of situation there. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy to me. I think a lot of it starts with onboarding, the retention side. Did they get brought into that culture? Did they get embraced when they got brought into the place? Were they made to feel like they were cared about, that their impact to the organization was going to matter, their contributions were going to matter? Another question I think is fantastic. Do you understand the contributions you're making to the organization and what that does in the greater picture? So I think opening up and communicating and sharing with our employees, one, are they appreciated? We ask them to do difficult things, on the recycling side. Gratitude, appreciation goes a heck of a long way.
Recognition. If you think back to a time when your boss told you did a great job, think about that. We all have had that. That's all experience, right? You still remember it. Do you remember your merit increase in 1997? No. But you remember the time your boss told you you're doing a great job. That's how powerful recognition is. I think another thing I'll say about retention, and I don't want to be negative, but we all know that some leaders are driving our employees away. And we all intuitively know who those people are. And if you have the ability to do an empirical study and maybe do some analysis department by department as to who's staying, who's going, you're going to find a problem. And for whatever reasons, organizations are very tolerant of leaders that are tolerant of poor performance, toxic behavior, or maybe even participate in that. So if you have a part of your organization that's not functioning well, and it could be a 5-person department, or it could be a 500-person division, and if it's not functioning well, and you're seeing a lot of stresses and strains and indicators of a workforce in crisis, your best place to look to solve that is the person who's running that organization. That's just a fact. Because the person's personality, their ethics, their empathy, their lack of empathy, that filters all the way down to the organization. Mm-hmm. So if you want good retention, make sure you have good leaders and don't tolerate bad leaders.
So you already kind of point out one of the questions I was going to ask. The biggest mistake in the company is when they're trying to do the right thing about retention. So one of the things is not tolerating, right, the bad leadership.
Yeah, I would say
anything else?
I would say, and I'll let my colleague, I would say don't tolerate poor performance and don't tolerate poor leadership. So, and I always tell people too, I'm sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
We have X amount of time and energy in our coaching budget, right, to coach our employees. So a football coach does not spend his time with the people on the team who showed up out of shape, who didn't win, who didn't read the playbook, right, and who were screwing around during team meetings. You know what a good football coach does with those people? What's he do, Jeremy? He cuts them.
It's going to cut them. Yeah.
A good football coach spends his time making his A players, A++ players. So I always encourage leaders is give your weak links a chance. Create standard expectations, but if they're not performing, spend your time developing your stars because they're the ones that are going to move the needle for you.
No, I agree. And I think an important piece, I'm just from the education front, right? I'm not in the workforce, but providing opportunities for your current employees to continue to upskill and reskill is really important because if you put an investment in them, they're going to put an investment back in you. And that, like I said, that piece is really critical. And maybe you have somebody in your workforce that you see is doing a really good thing here and they just need a little bit more and they could move up. Everyone wants to move up, right? It doesn't matter if you're 18 or 57. Everyone wants to move up. Everyone wants to see their pathway. And a lot of the students that I have that come back to college for that, they're coming back for that opportunity, right? You know, I have a lot of students in my GIS program that are coming back from our local energy company because they've kind of hit their glass ceiling. And if they come back for this 1-year certification, they can move up, you know, 3 or 4 more steps, and they want to do that. And that investment that the company puts in them, that's a huge return.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about mentorship, because that is one of the tools that you could also use as a retention and also as a growing technique within the company, right? So how can mentorship program help employees stay engaged and interested in the company? Let's maybe spend some time on that.
One, we talk about the multi-generational workforce that we have out there right now. And one of the concerns that I have as we've got the boomer generation that is aging out of this is the loss of knowledge and experience. That when we get to the end of the line is that information just walking out the door with them. Mentorship provides that transfer of knowledge. It provides the culture gap between our older generations and our younger generations. I can think too specifically our break room, right? I mean, we've got guys in there that are pushing 70 plus years old, and we've got kids that are coming right out of school, right out of high school, that are doing the same thing. Their managers are having to communicate to those same people. They receive information in very different ways, right? So that's an incredible challenge. One other thing I just want to touch on too from our last point, thing that I think is one of the biggest mistakes when it comes to the retention side of it as well is making sure that you don't take for granted those 3 out of 10 that are actively engaged with your organization. Yeah. Assuming that those people who are high performers and are doing their job, at or exceeding the expectations that you have from them in that role, make sure that those people don't get overlooked just because we're trying to, level up maybe the other 70%. When it comes to, there's some people that, hey, it's okay if they leave. That's a real thing, but there's other people that it's very difficult. We can all be replaced. That's a fact of life. The world will keep on spinning, but some people are more difficult to find a replacement value for, right?
Mm-hmm. I would like to just take a second to talk about apprenticeships, because that's really important. And I know ReMA does a great job building some of those pathways, right? Helping place students within internships within your organizations. And if you're not building that relationship with ReMA, I know Robbie's in the back, you definitely need to be building that pathway. Because again, students want that experience. A lot of kids are stuck in this loop where you have to have a degree to get a job and you have to have experience. Well, how can you do both when you're 18 and you're coming out of college? So providing those, taking a chance really is what it is. Because when I have my industry partners on my advisory board, a lot of them are really hesitant to start an internship or an apprenticeship program. I live in a state that doesn't have unions. We're a right to work state, right? So it's a little bit trickier, and I feel like we're reinventing the wheel every single time we make a program. But taking that chance on maybe just bringing in one intern and seeing how it goes and then building from there, that's really important because you're giving them a chance to try out the industry, make sure that it's right for them. And then in all honesty, a lot of the students that I've had that go through internships, they stay with that company. Because again, you took a chance on them and they recognize it. So building those pathways, those apprenticeship pathways, whether it's for an 18-year-old or a 30-year-old, is really, really important.
I think in some way the internship, it's almost like a informal mentorship, right? You see something in someone and you said, hey, I want you to learn more, and I'm spending time investing my energy in you. I know, Kevin, you wrote a book about mentorship as well, right? Can you tell us more about how mentorship has helped?
Well, personally, when I was coming up career-wise, I had a mentor who directed me to the 3 best jobs I ever had. So if you're looking for mentorship, I always tell people to find somebody who can move the needle for you, right? And we all have 5,000 LinkedIn connections, but how many of those people are really going to help you move the needle? So if you're young and you want to move your career forward, find people who are very active in their industry and find people who are very active in their community and glom onto those people because they're going to help you move the needle from your career. That's from the mentee side. On the mentor side, I think it's a good way of using the skill sets with your workforce that they don't employ it primarily on a day-to-day basis. You mentioned the guys in the break room, right? They're not formal leaders. They don't have the title, but they are leaders. And mentorship using people like that gives them a chance to stretch their skill set to help other people as well. So I think when we think about mentorship programs, it's always, well, I'm going to go have lunch with the EVP of production and he's my mentor. Well, there's a lot of other mentorship inside the organization that people need to be looking for as well. So mentorship happens all day, every day. It's just a matter of being receptive and open to it and creating a culture where it's encouraged.
So ReMA does this mentorship program, and I know we have a lot of participants in this room that are graduating from that program this year. I also want to leave them with some wisdom, because mentorship, like what Kevin just mentioned, it happens pretty much everywhere. However, there's a lot of fancy words. After mentorship, there's advocacy and sponsorship. Right. So maybe we can look at, what's the difference between that mentorship, sponsorship, and your personal board of director? Maybe we can spend some time and touch base on that, just inspire some of the people in the room to continue to grow their journey.
Well, you sound like you have experience on that, so why don't you share?
I share?
Yeah.
Well, I'll share a little bit and then I'll just pass the ball because the spotlight's on you guys. So my perspective is that mentorship is you find someone who in the room is willing to coach you along the way. Sponsorship is more of someone that's actively advocating for you when you're not in the room. So say, for example, today I'm looking at Mel over here or Nina over here. When they're not in the room, I'm the one actively pushing them and say, I think she will be the next good moderator for your session. And this is why Kim was going to be here rather than me, because I believe in those advocacy and sponsorship. You push and drive the next generation forward. And the board of director is, kind of like a nonprofit or any organization. You have people that are guiding you and they have different jobs, right? You have a board of director, maybe there's a president, there's a vice president, a secretary. There's different people that are key to your personal development. Mm-hmm. So I have a personal board of director that help me in different areas. Maybe some help me to be more confident in my speaking and public speaking. Some people help me to be not as soft, because I know that sometimes I could come across as softer, right? So how do I build confidence? So those are some of the things that I use. But thanks for asking me. I'm honored, but please share.
Well, I think, something that you mentioned kind of struck me too is we all have biases. We all have an affinity for people that are most like us, right? When I worked at ASU, I could always tell, most of the African American kids hung out, most of the Hispanic kids hung out, most of the Asian American kids hung out. People kind of gravitate towards people that are more like them. Okay, that's called similarity bias, right? And one thing we need to do is break through that similarity bias and take on a mentee who is maybe older than you, right? Or take on a mentee who's a different gender than you, or take on a mentee who didn't go to the same school that you went to. So I think we all need to break out of those. I think the word was use silos. And well, I'm going to help this young man because he's a young Hispanic like I was at one time. Well, I need to broaden my perspective as a potential mentor who can benefit from my mentorship. So it's breaking out of silos, it's being receptive, it's being inclusive.
So touching on that point of sponsorship, mm-hmm. How do we intentionally create sponsorship opportunity? Maybe I can start with Jeremy.
One, you have to have willing participants, first of all, right? It's one thing to have somebody seeking out mentorship, but the mentee has got to be as willing a participant in that relationship as the mentor is, right? So finding the people that want to challenge and promote and grow their people. It takes a certain personality type, takes a certain patience, it's a certain person that wants to actually see the best in somebody else, right? That's not everybody. So first of all, I would say pick your mentees and your mentors very carefully. But I think it is vital. I think back, I've had 3 people that I think of immediately when we started talking about this subject. And did I enter into a formal mentor-mentee contract relationship with them? Absolutely not. But they were people that I admired their character. I admired their intellect. I admired their determination at the problems that they were attacking. And I learn all the things that I can from them, right? Myself, when it comes to working with our people, I try to, as much as possible, wish the best for all of our employees, right? So if they grow, if they exceed, they develop their skills and go on to improve their station in life, whether it's with us or outside of our organization, I legitimately am excited for them, right? And so doing it with intention and finding people that actively want the best for you and are willing to sharing your attributes outside of the room. It's very important, but again, it's challenging because the number of people that want to teach is not as many as maybe we think there is.
And Jacqueline, from your perspective, I know that you earlier mentioned you already partnered with some of the industry leaders in your program. So they come to school, talk to students. So that's an informal mentorship. But within your college, is there any other mentorship program that you're currently actively engaged in? And how is that going?
Yeah, I would say there's really nothing formal set up. And I think, and that's what we're trying to build at this point. Because, traditional career fairs and things like that, they don't work. They don't work anymore. Kids don't want to walk around to tables and talk to strangers, right? They don't. That's not their thing.
It's a generational difference.
It really is. And so bringing in the industry and showing off the students' skills, that's what they want to do. And when you bring in an industry, and it's not the industry standing there telling them, here's the 15 jobs we have open, here's the skills you need, I'm out of here. If you have questions, talk to me later. It's building that investment right away. So bringing in an industry partner, showing off, the welding skills that these students have. Well, now the students are interested because they're showing you what they can do, right? And it's making it more competitive and more selective, right? And it's creating excitement. And so developing, that's almost like developing a little bit of a mentorship right away. And that part is what we need to focus on. So kind of changing our approach and changing our ideas to meet where current students are. That's a challenge that all of us have to do, right? I've been teaching higher ed for 18 years and I have been to so many career fairs. It's kind of gross. And it's really nice to be able to do something completely different and see really good results at the end of it.
Great. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing. I love how you said that. Having a little bit of challenge and having a change. I was interviewed one time about the mentorship program, about our ReMA mentorship program. And I was asked, it seems like there's some change that happened. And I say, yes, change is very good because it changes how we progress to the next level. And I hope you guys find this session encouraging to that next step. And I also want to take the time to congratulate all of our mentorship graduates. I'm going to read the name of people that have met the requirement and graduated because they actually have to earn this certificate. It's not just they sign up for the program and they get this certificate, but they actually earned because they met some criteria. So we're also challenging our industry next coming leaders trying to have those requirements in place. So if I read your name and you can just come up, Nina is going to be here presenting you a certificate. These are going to be alphabetical order. I also want to give a shout out to Swede Machinery and also the Metals Agency. Those two companies have generously sponsored gifts for each of the participants of the mentorship program. So if you graduated, you will get a certificate. But if you participated in the program, please also grab a bag and also a book, Kevin's book. So Amazon's best-selling book. It's for you for free today if you participate in the mentorship program. I'm going to start reading the name. You can come up and let's just hold our applause to the end. I would like you to stay up here. We're going to take a group photos at the end of the day as well. Alyssa and Sarah, Megan Barnhart, Paige Bauman, Thomas Bennett, Whitney Bullion, Neil Bice, Pat Capasso. I am not going to be able to pronounce this name correctly. I'll try my best. Eugenie Chakraborty, Albert Cozy, Colin Duthit. I'm saying that right. Josephita Harry, Nina Grimes, Abhijay Gonka, Maren Johnson, Aldo Jordan, Joe Lachens, April Oglesby, Kat Orona Hureta, Brian Shine, Ryan Weinstein, Zach Wider, Alex Winkler, Poila Vieira. And those are our 2024 mentorship graduates. So we can give them a round of applause. And I also want to just take the time that some of those are mentors, some of those are mentee. We specifically really don't name mentor mentee. We just say that they are a pair because it's our belief that regardless if you're mentor or mentee, you're always learning something as a pair. And some of them were grouped together. So I also want to give a special thanks to our panelists again. Thank you for volunteering your time and participating.